As I've said many times, this is probably the single most dramatic and powerful day of my life. Um, it's, as you all know, Rudy Samadhi took place today. But one thing I've learned about Samadhi and about living and about this day should be approached with joy, with love, and above everything else, with gratitude. Gratitude to this extraordinary teacher who left us amazing way of doing deep spiritual practice and gave it unconditionally. I mean, I don't think maybe one of you here, maybe Bob Sink, other than that, I don't know of anyone here who really knew Rudy, spent time with him, studied with him. But what we're doing here is the result of the transmission of teachings that goes from generation to generation. And instead of being sad and lamenting and crying and feeling sorry for ourselves, I wish we could all get together and have a joyous party and celebrate Rudy's Samadhi, celebrate a person who truly worked hard enough in his life to become one with higher energy, one with God. Because ultimately, every human being has to attain that state of enlightenment, every human being, whether it takes one lifetime or 2,000 lifetimes, ultimately has to get to a place where they surrender in enough depth inside themselves that they literally become nothing. If anything, they become a child of God living in the world, serving God, serving higher energy, and using their life, to help others, develop consciousness, develop their spiritual lives. So this whole class today should be filled with gratitude. It should be filled with love. It should be filled with every kind of joy. And as I say, I wish there's 40 people here tonight, there's a lot of people. And I wish we could all get together and just have a big celebration, have a big bonfire, puja fire, and celebrate Rudy's Samadhi. Not, cry and bemoan and lament over the death of a very great soul. He's not here anymore. Well, he is here. I mean, he lives in my heart. And if you do this work in a profound way, he will also live in your heart. Just as Nityananda will do exactly the same thing. And God knows how many other teachers will come to nurture us and to help us on this path. It's a very difficult path. You're up against every imaginable odds in this world to develop a spiritual life. From the immediate families to all the politics and the economics and all the stuff that goes on in the world. We're up against all of it. It's all a test, whether we can learn to deal with all these things and live in this world and at the same time build a chakra system that connects us to higher energy in the universe. So this class should be one filled with joy. It should be one filled with gratitude. I mean, I was there with him when we hit that mountain in an airplane. And I don't know a lot of people that have been in airplane crashes. You don't meet them every day. And I was there. And, from the moment I realized that he was gone, that he had really passed to another dimension, I never felt a moment of loss. Because I always felt that he was inside me, he was living in my heart. He had unconditionally guided me to whatever state I was in when he moved on. And I felt nothing but gratitude for having spent 6 years with him. and never felt this sense of loss, the sense that Rudy was missing, because he was never missing. I couldn't have lived the life I've lived without him being inside me. And to me, that is something very special. Because in order to do this meditation, in order to grow and develop a system in yourself that can become one with higher energy, you really need the training inside. You need teachers guiding you on the earth level and in the cosmos. And if you open deep enough, those teachers come. I mean, look, I've come into the life of all of you. You understand? Rudy came into my life. And with Rudy came all of these teachers, Nityananda, and so many others that I don't even know their names. So it's a blessing, you understand? I'm not big on lineages and all this stuff that people do, but this is a blessing. This is a blessing to be able to feel a direct connection with somebody that was such a great master as Rudy. And I say this, because he saved my life, basically. I mean, I asked him, a year after I met him, I said, what happened the day that we met? And he said to me, I saw my son looking, lost in the universe and looking into my store. And I pulled you into the door. I mean, when he told me that, it went so deeply inside me, and I was still a pretty messed up kid at that time. I didn't have half the balance that I have now, a third the balance that I have now. But it went so deeply inside me, it was etched inside me, because it was the beginnings of real gratitude that somebody cared enough to say, I will train you. I will put up with all of your stuff, your intensity, your loneliness, your fear, your everything. I will put up, and I will take you on the river. We will ride the raft on the white water rapids until we finally hit, a lake that you can navigate. And in the process of doing that, he taught me how to navigate the white water rapids of life. And God only knows how many white water rapids I had to navigate in the last 40 years, 50 years. It's beyond, And I could have never done it without the love, the dedication, the devotion, the training he gave me. And that's what this is about. You understand? My job is to pass this on to a new generation of people. That's my job. People build stupas and shrines. That's not my job. My job is to pass on the profundity of this meditation practice to a whole generation of people that in turn can pass it on to another generation of people. And in our own kind of small way, it doesn't touch 8 billion people, but it does give life to human beings. It does make it possible for them to see a world in a different way. So let's make this class one not of sadness. Rudy's died, and today is the day we're going to light 92 candles and sit there and cry all day because he's one of joy, celebratory, one of happiness, one of fun, one of laughter. I mean, to hang around Rudy was to spend half your time laughing. I mean it. I got most of my training in his house in front of the Dick Van Dyke Show. He would walk into the room, turn on the television. It was he loved the Dick Van Dyke Show. And I'm sitting there meditating with him, and he's watching the Dick Van Dyke Show and transmitting Shakti with a smile on his face. It was extraordinary. And who would ever believe, That's how I was going to get some of my training in front of the television set with the Dick Van. And in the mornings, it was always the young rascals, those kids, loved them. So every morning, that was on the television. And Rudy would laugh. He loved to laugh. So let's everybody try to truly say, okay, enough of me. And by me, I don't mean Stuart. I mean enough of me, all of us. And let me get past me. Let me open my heart. And yes, there are going to be tough times. There are going to be physical problems. There are going to be mental problems. There are going to be economic problems. But let me get past all this stuff and find that place in my heart where there's joy, where there's love, where there's gratitude. Not only when things are going well in life, but no matter what is going on. So we'll have a class. And afterwards, if anyone has a question they would like to ask, I'd be happy to try and answer.
I have a question, Stuart.
Yes.
What were Rudy's last words or his last lesson to you?
His last words were the deepest sense of surrender. When we were in that airplane, he was dictating another book that he was writing to Mimi. And just as the plane hit the mountain, his last words were a deepest sense of surrender. And I couldn't think of more appropriate words to say at the moment you're going to embrace God.
Mm.
If you want to find out about Rudy and what my connection was with him, as I say, I don't promote my books, but I did write a book it's called Rudy. Actually, the book is called The Mystical Ferry Boat and Other Stories. And in there's a story called Rudy. And that story takes you right through the plane crash, exactly moment to moment what happened, but more importantly, it wasn't written for that purpose. The whole plane ride was almost an allegorical study of what it means to have a spiritual teacher, what the connection is, what the depth is, how important that connection is in the life of any human being. I suggest that you read it, it's probably a $15 investment or something, and you'll get a really strong and clear picture of what my relationship was with Rudy. You'll get a very strong picture of what Rudy was like. After I wrote the book, I had a friend, God bless him, he passed on, named Dean Gitter. And he had all of Rudy's tapes and he had them transcribed. He had like 1,500 pages of Rudy's tapes. And after he read that book, he called me up and he said, Stuart, you're the only one who can take this book, what I transcribed, and give it, Rudy's word, make it sound like Rudy. He said, based on what I read in your book. So I told him, Dean, I can't do that. It would, a 1,500 page book of that. It would really consume the rest of my life. So I said, I apologize. I just can't do that kind of thing. But this is what he told me. I would suggest if you have, time and you want to read an interesting book, that book is really interesting. And especially the story of Rudy, I think literarily it's one of the best things I've ever written. And the last words in the book, if I remember correctly, deepest sense of surrender. In a mountain.
Thank you, Stuart. I have a book called Rudy, The Final Moments that I had originally from you. Is that similar?
It's the same book, except the other one is really a very finely edited book that I turned into a very good piece of literature. It's on a much better level than the original book I published.
Okay.
That's why I'm suggesting that book.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have a question?
It's very basic question. Samadhi, Rudy Samadhi. Samadhi is his last name or what? I think lack of English knowledge. Samadhi.
Samadhi is a Sanskrit word. And what it means is a oneness with God. It's the state of being that you take with you the moment you leave the world. That enables you to be in such a deep state of surrender that there's a oneness with God and higher energy in the universe. You have gained your spiritual enlightenment.
How do you spell S-A?
S-A-M-A-D-H-I.
S-A-M?
A-D-H-I.
D-H-I. Thank you. S-A-M-D-H-I.
Samadhi, S-A-M-A-D-H-I. It wasn't Rudy's last name. Very sweet. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Is that English? I'm sorry, English or just, sorry.
Is Samadhi an English word? No.
No.
It's a Sanskrit word. It's an ancient word in an ancient language.
Oh,
Sanskrit.
When I see dictionary, I couldn't find the words, so.
Well, put it in Google. I'm sure you'll find it. Google, you'll find it there. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask?
Yes, I have a question.
Yes.
Yesterday you were talking about Rudy's head and changes physically. And so I was just wondering, in doing this practice, does it change your physical body? Or what's it
You know, there are psychic channels in the head. And as you do this, excuse me 1 second. It's funny how I don't cough in the class as soon as I talk. But, you know, as soon as you, not as soon as you do your inner work and the energy develops and builds up, it opens up channels in your forehead. I mean, you can see it here, you know, there's like a third eye here, and then there's like the wings of a phoenix bird. And frankly, you know, in the last 10 years, the shape of my head has really changed. It had to make room for the knowledge, the wisdom, everything that flows through. So those psychic channels had to be opened. And the meditation practice opens those psychic channels. And it will change the very structure of your head. Even your body, everything changes, you know? You know, I mean, look, at my age, to be doing what I'm doing is ridiculous, you know? 98% of the people at my age, they're sitting in old age homes, in a state of retirement and, you know, rest homes and all that kind of stuff. It's all that energy, and it's transformed my head, it's transformed my body. It gives you a kind of power inside that ordinary living will never give you. And that will affect your body, your head. It attracts to you everything you need to develop a strong life. And it really will change the shape of the body. People get beautiful. I mean, in one of my poems, I was talking about how, when a person opens spiritually, there's a beauty inside them that people, the people at Vogue magazine and hairdressers and all these, and they can never comprehend. People become beautiful. The heart's open, there's a twinkle in their eye, there's love inside them. Their whole body is transformed. Because there is that kind of beauty in every human being. And we lock it down, with all the inhibitions that we create in ourselves. We lock down that wonderful beauty that really exists, physical as well as spiritual beauty in every human being. So the body changes, your forehead changes, whole face changes. Does anyone else have a question?
Stuart, since you're talking about the head, in this meditation, I was experiencing tingling on the top of my head, but towards the back, very specifically there, like vivid tingling. And I'd not experienced that quite like it before.
Well, good. That means the crown chakra is starting to get developed in you. That's what the tingling is about. And as the energy, accumulates there, it will create an opening there that allows the soul to connect with, the soul of the universe. The human soul connects with the soul of the universe. That tingling is part of sensations that you feel that is opening. That energy is gathering itself, and eventually it germinates. And the crown chakra opens.
Thank you. It felt so alive. It was amazing.
Well, it's great. It's wonderful. It's just a sign how much you're growing in your life, and that's terrific. That's what this is all about. All of us growing in our lives. And it's really about nothing else, I mean this. I hate to say this, but it's true. It's not about religion. It's not about following, people. It's simply about each individual using the power of these meditation classes, the incredible techniques that Rudy left us to build inside themselves a system that can bring about their spiritual enlightenment. That's what this is about. I mean, there's a group of 40 people here, but it's about each individual person opening and using what they gain in these classes to build the kind of system inside that enables them to become one with God. That's all it's about. Not about building ashrams and building temples and all that stuff that people do. It's about building each and every unique person that sits in these classes and works on themselves, so they can develop the kind of strength inside that'll enable that tingling to start happening in the top of the head. And then eventually that crown chakra opening and the soul of a human being connects with the soul of the universe. That marriage, it then brings back rivers like the Ganges flowing out of the Himal. Because with it comes knowledge, wisdom, joy, love, foundation, everything that really is involved in having a spiritual life. Laughter, fun, sweetness, kindness, compassion. So though it's a group of people, you got to realize that everyone who is here for a singular purpose. Rudy left this meditation exercise for us for a singular purpose, and that's for each person to use it to build an amazing inner life. The strength to be able to not have to run away to monasteries and caves in the mountains, and but to live here in the world. The world becomes a temple. And not only to live in the world and do our lives every day, whatever our lives happen to be, but at the same time, we are connected to spirit, to God, to higher energy in the universe, because of the chakra system when it gets highly developed. And Rudy left this meditation to us in order to do this. And the wonderful thing about this, and he always spoke about this, it gets back to the responsibility of each and every human being has towards their spiritual life. That's really the ultimate test. What is our responsibility? What are we willing to commit to? What are we willing to do to step out of, a well-conceived world that we built in order to step into the unknown and to open and to receive that energy? That's what's, look, when I spent a lot of time with, I saw this all the time with him, all the time. He was constantly stepping into the unknown. He was constantly expanding himself, building himself. He would, I used to walk in his store at 1 o'clock in the afternoon. He was, he wasn't busy there with customers. He was working on himself. 3 o'clock, he was, 5 o'clock, he was working on himself. It was amazing. And it certainly taught me how to be responsible to this, to be grateful for this. And trust me, I am really tired. This has been some year. I am really tired. At one point yesterday, I was asking you, give me the strength to get through this weekend. I asked it, I made it. But you have to do what your commitments are. Does anyone else have a question?
Stuart, what did Rudy speak about death? What did he say about death?
About what?
About death?
About death. Well, when he spoke about that, it comes back to everything I say. When you build an inner life, life and death become one flow of energy. That's what happens. There is no death. Understand? And frankly, there's so much made out of people being afraid of dying. And I don't think that's the case. I think people are afraid of living. And that's where they get paralyzed. They're afraid of the life they live. And Rudy used to talk about that a lot. It's not the fear of dying. It's the fear of truly living, unconditionally, eating from every dish on life's smorgasbord, not wanting there to be a dish that you have to come back for. That's really where the fear builds up. So people build cocoons around themselves. They build cubicles around themselves. They condition themselves into living in the straight and narrow, you know, and that's where the fear is. If you get over that fear and recognize that all of life is an unknown, or 98% of it is an unknown. And we have to build that kind of system inside that enables us to have the courage to step into the unknown. And he spoke about this a lot. There is no life and there is no death. It's just the soul moving through time and space and learning what it has to learn in this particular body that we're all in, and then moving on to the next dimension. Sometimes it takes, excuse me, many lifetimes for the soul to learn what it has to learn here. But Rudy never, created some kind of enemy out of death or fear of death. Or he constantly would embrace the unknown. And I think that is part of the evolution of one's inner work. It's a big part of the evolution of what took place inside me. And certainly it was a major part of the evolution of what took place inside Rudy. I mean, he was basically a fearless kind of person. But he wasn't like that when he was 15 years old. It was years of working on himself that created that kind of internal power. And he loved life, loved life, which is the key to enlightenment. You got to love life. If you're living and cowering in some kind of fearful place because of life, there's no way enlightenment is going to come to you.
It's 9 o'clock.
That means God testing Rudy for last moment, most scary moment of the experience. I think, I don't know, but this is really, special kind of death, yes.
What's the question you want to ask?
Oh, because Rudy developing fearless, so that God testing on him last moment.
Look, Rudy had this incredible sense of humor.
Mm.
He was able to look. I remember once he was fasting. He was fasting for 3-4 days. And our car, we're going up the beginning, broke down in front of a pizza baller. And he looked out the window and he said, it must be God's will. And he went in and he got himself a couple of slices of pizza. He was like that, He could see the humor in any situation. That broke fear down. He didn't have to be so tight about the way he was living. I once asked him, I said, what about vegetarian? He said, vegetarianism. He said, look, if you're pure inside, you can eat shit and it'll turn to gold.
Mm.
It's not the food, it's what we're like inside that the food becomes poison, because there's so much poison inside us. Tension and fear and insecurity. And also, if you really develop the chakra system and refine yourself, you start eating better foods. You're not going to eat junk food. You can see the humor in just about anything, frankly. That breaks down fear. And part of spiritual practice and growth is truly getting to the other side of fear. Getting to where fear is a conscious thing, not a thing that controls us. Fear is like a warning bell telling you that something is a little bit off and you better be more conscious. What we do is we create monsters out of it. It gets into our heads and we build Frankenstein. We build, it's like one of those science fiction movies. So what I'm saying basically is, this is an hour and a half of celebration. That's what it is. It's of gratitude. It's of realizing, and it's not only for Rudy, it's for anybody we have known in our life. Anybody we've spent time with, because every single human being has something that they've taught us. And instead of looking at the negative side, we can look at the side of what these people brought into our lives, what they sometimes forced us to do to learn. Sometimes there was love inside them that nurtured us. And if we look at the world that way, there's never any loss. There's gratitude for our parents, our siblings, friends, the people we work with, whatever makes up our lives, is exactly what is making us what we are. And there has to be a depth of gratitude for it. That's why I said this class should be celebratory. I mean, a human being attained the highest state a human being can attain. Higher than kings and queens and, presidents and CEOs. And that's a state of enlightenment. And we should celebrate that. We should be having a big party here, dancing and cheering and being happy about this amazing thing that Rudy attained in his lifetime. Something that each and every one of us can attain if we're willing to apply ourselves to our spiritual practice. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay. If there are no more questions, then God bless you. Thank you.
Thank you, Stuart.
God bless you for truly being here, and your presence is really demanding that I go to this place of myself, which just stuns me and is amazing to me, that really allows this kind of teaching to come through. And without you being here, I couldn't do this, That's why I'm looking forward to having in-person classes. They'll start in the middle of March, people coming, and there'll be healing, there'll be really deep spiritual practice. So if you can make it, you're welcome. As again, I don't want to get into vaxxing and anti-vaxxing and masks and anti-mask. I don't, that's for the newspapers. But I really would like people to, be vaccinated when they come here. I just don't want to have to think about it. Well, will and won't and all this stuff. And even if you're vaccinated, you can still get the problem, So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to it. I'm looking forward to seeing you all here, whoever comes, and doing this kind of inner work. You know, and in person, I think it'll be even stronger than it is in these, Zoom classes.
Mm.
There was somebody who came by the other day, and it kind of broke my heart to see this person. They looked very unwell, very sick. And they told me, I don't like Zoom classes. That's why I don't go to your classes. And I thought, my God, I had to keep myself from getting upset at him, at this person. My God, is better what you're doing? The person looked very unhealthy. And he could come to these classes and get the energy. And you think I like Zoom classes? My God, I do 7 of them a week. And you think I love these classes? No, I'm here for the teachings, the energy, and how it changes my life and how it feeds me and so on. That's the only reason. I don't have to like these classes. Rudy spent 13 years with Muktananda, and it was 13 really difficult years for him. He didn't want to go there. But he said, I can't find anyone on earth who can break me down like that man. I have to go and sit with him. Didn't want to be there. And I know this for a fact because I hung out with him and Muktananda and spent a lot of time with both of them. And I saw what used to go on. It was shocking to me. And I said, why do you do that? I don't know anybody who can break me down. I need somebody who can break me down. These classes break me down. All of you help to break me down. So I don't care if it's Zoom or Schmoom or whatever it is, as long as it keeps working this way and nurturing me, what's the difference? What you have to do in order to get a spiritual life. Kind of broke my heart to see this person, really did, And what am I going to do? Yell at him? I can't. People make their choices. Does anyone else have a question they would like to ask? Okay, and thank you. Bless you all. Have a wonderful evening. Laugh a lot this evening. Find a lot of joy in your heart and a lot of gratitude. And there'll be a class on Wednesday, and I'm looking forward to seeing everybody. Thank you. Bless you.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you, Stuart.
Thank you.
Stuart.
Stuart.
Very good.
Have a good rest.